Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart, and welcome to In Conversation, hopefully the beginning of a new series of interviews with members of the wargaming community, be that rules writers, company owners, or members of the hobby community themselves who have a bit of a story to tell, have some interesting things to share with people that you may will find interesting to hear on the channel. Today's first victim or first interview is Adrian McWalter, who's a long-time wargamer, has his fingers in many pies wargaming wise, but most of you will be familiar with his work as the supplement writer for the Napoleonic side of the Black Powder rules. So he's the writer of Albion Triumphant volumes 1 and 2, Clash of Eagles, and most recently the 100 Days supplement for Epic Battles Waterloo. We couldn't get Adrian's camera working for the video, so hopefully you will accept our apologies for that. The most important part is obviously the conversation, and I'm sure many of you will be treating this like a podcast and listening to it while you paint, though there are a few images and pictures and things like that placed throughout the video for those of you who do want to watch and keep an eye on it. There are still some things to see as well. So without further ado, let's get over to Adrian and the conversation.
Well, welcome, Adrian. Thank you for taking your time to come on the channel and answer some questions. Most channel subscribers probably know you for being the author of the Black Powder supplements of Albion Triumphant Volumes 1 and 2 and Clash of Eagles, and the new Epic Waterloo supplement, the 100 Days. But I'm sure they'd love to hear a bit more about you and about your background in wargaming. So do you want to give us your life in wargaming elevator pitch in as many minutes as you want?
Okay, sure. First of all, I should say thank you very much for taking the time to have me on this podcast. My name's Adrian McWalter. I've been wargaming for well over 40 years. So people are going to guess my age now because I first got into wargaming when I was around about 11 years old, and I walked to my local library in Maltby, which is a small mining village in South Yorkshire. I saw a group of gamers that were playing a Napoleonic game, a very large Napoleonic game on a very large table, and I was instantly hooked. And from that point, I railroaded my mum and dad to get me some Airfix models, the old British and French Waterloo range, and played solo games with my own rules.
Fantastic.
So that's how I started. A little bit later, I joined a club in Maltby called the Maltby District War Games Club, or we used to call ourselves MAD. And we played mainly historical games. In fact, not mainly, all historical games, both set on land, sea, and air. The club itself now is still going strong with founder members Andy, Chris, and Cozy are still pushing the lead around, which is really, really good to say. It's a club that was born in the 1980s. And then there was a revelation for me. I think it was around about 1983. And a club member brought down some Citadel Space Marines, the beaky-faced ones.
I do, yes.
With a set of rules called Rogue Trader, and we had a game of that. And that was like a switch that sort of changed my wargaming life, in that I still maintained playing historical games, but I also started playing 40k, Epic 40k, and Warhammer. And whilst playing Warhammer, I actually found that I was quite decent at it, and started to think, I could do something with this. And so I galvanised a group of friends, and we started entering tournaments. The first tournament I went to was in 1996, and it was one of the first Games Workshop Grand Tournaments. That was at Leicester University, run by Jervis Johnson. I did quite well. I came second in my first tournament, so I thought that's not too bad.
Not at
all. So yeah, really, really proud. And things sort of built from that. And I started going to lots and lots of tournaments and doing really, really well. Placing in most of them. But what I really am proud of is not only did I place in those Warhammer tournaments, I actually, on a couple of occasions, had a clean sweep in terms of coming first, getting the most sporting opponent vote, winning that, and also best painted army.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, so and I know tournament war gamers tournaments sometimes get a bad press, but I've really had some of the most fantastic gaming experiences at tournaments, and met people from all over the world, and got some really close friends from all over the world through doing that. Um, During that tournament experience, I became the captain of Team England, and we had a tournament against the United States, both in the UK and in the US. We won in the UK, they won in the US, but so honours even.
You feel
That was around,
advantage.
the early 2000s, which was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I created a club called the Dragon Slayers, or the Sheffield Dragon Slayers. Interestingly, the Sheffield Dragon Slayers were based in Mansfield, but hey ho. Um, and at its peak, there was about 40 people that attended club nights and mainly played Warhammer Fantasy Battle.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, myself and a good friend Peter Scoley um, devised a tournament called the Sheffield Slaughter that runs with about 80 to 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's an annual event run from the late 90s, still going today, and is the oldest Warhammer tournament in the world. We've sort of passed that on to other people now because we're old and crinkly and haven't got the time or inclination to do that anymore.
I remember hearing about that many times on many a Warhammer Fantasy podcast back in the day, shall we say.
Yeah, fantastic event. And we get people, again, come in, 80 to 100 people, but some of those people come from, America, Europe, Australia, so it's got a really good reputation. And from that, sort of getting my name out there through, I hope people thinking that I'm a good gamer, but also a nice guy. That I met Paul Sawyer and Rick Priestley, Jervis Johnson, and I was invited to sort of write articles for White Dwarf, as well as take part in battle reports for White Dwarf I think around about 2004, with the main ones. Again, with Pete Scoley, and we butted heads together on paper, which was really good. And I was also invited to be a playtester for Warhammer Fantasy Battle for many years.
Must have been really exciting to be part of all of that.
Oh, mate! As a young gamer, I'm going to say young gamer. I was probably in my 30s, but it was a pinnacle that the Games Workshop are inviting you into their inner sanctum to let me help them out, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, no, I'm jealous. That would be something that's still on my bucket list, I suppose. Not that I play many of their games anymore, so it's not going to happen. But the idea of it, what a fantastic thing to be sort of involved in. Yeah,
I'm glad I've ticked it off my bucket list, to be honest. Which something that I'm quite proud of. But coming back to my first love, Napoleonics, and it's my first love, probably my only love, really. When Black Powder was released, I saw an opportunity, really, and I thought, well, I really like that. I've read the rules. I think they're really good. They're really simple to grasp, but I think there's an opportunity to create specific supplements based on historical segments. So through my connections with Paul, I had a meeting with John and Paul, and as a punt, sort of said to them, I think you could do some Napoleonic supplements. Thinking they were just going to say that, well, no, I don't think so, AD. But to my amazement, they said, yeah. So then that's where sort of I haven't turned back from it, in that we've got Albion Triumphant 1, Albion Triumphant 2, and Clash of Eagles, with more on the way. So that's where I am now. In terms of games that I like now, I still play Black Powder.
Yeah.
I've got a small, I'll say small, it's a cottage industry company called Stand 2 Games.
Yep.
Where I've written my own rules. And I play Over the Hills, which is my version of my Napoleonic rules.
Right.
I enjoy Star Wars Legion, and I play the new iteration of Warhammer, which is Age of Sigmar.
Right. Okay.
Still going to tournaments.
I thought you might.
no.
Your name's cropped up on a couple of things. I can't remember when I saw it, but I did wonder whether you were still playing. That's brilliant. It's brilliant, especially when there was quite a lot of noise when it changed. It's good to hear that you're still playing it in its new version.
It's I'm still playing it, but I'm not doing as well. But, I still pick up best sports sometimes. I've had a second place, and I think that's about it. But it's one of those. You can get to an age, don't you, where to play Age of Sigmar, you've got to be on the ball, and I ain't got the time or inclination to do that. So I just shove models about.
I can imagine. I was just about to say, I wonder if really high-end competitive gaming, not always, but is a kind of a younger single man's game, or definitely doesn't have kids and got a lot more time to spend practicing and metaing their lists and things at the weekend. I don't know how people manage to do it. I play a bit of Middle-earth strategy battle game. And I play it mostly narratively and love the game. And I quite like the match play version of it as well. But the guys who play the top tables and the events are absolutely fantastic players, but my brain just doesn't work like that anymore. There's no chance I'm going to see a profile and think this interaction and that interaction might. Yeah, I'm just looking at the pictures now and the days of learning.
The nice models.
Nice model. Maybe that's why I've moved back into historical gaming a lot more, because for me there's a slightly different angle for it. But anyway, that sounds like. Sounds like you've covered a lot of my questions just by explaining what you've been getting on with, which is fantastic. Let's take you a little back to the Napoleonic thing then. So it sounded like that was your kind of your first game you started playing with, really, because of the Airfix figures. What about the period? So what did you always love the Napoleonic period? Had you had an introduction to the period before that made you want those Airfix figures, or was it just because that was one of the common sets that boys tended to get, the kind of the Waterloo sets and things?
I think in the 70s it was La Haison, and it was French and British Airfix figures, and that was your staple diet if you were into your Airfix. The other thing. Do you remember do you remember the film? The film Waterloo. There was a book that accompanied that film, and my mother and father, for one of my birthdays, bought me that book, and it's a fantastic book. It's got an account of the whole campaign, but it's got some really good pictures in there, some artwork, and that sort of reinforced what I wanted to do. So it was always, for me, going to be Waterloo, and all my games were based on Waterloo. And there was no other Napoleonics. It was the British and the French and the Prussians at Waterloo, and that's where my background came from.
Right. I wondered if there was what it was that drew you in, and whether it was the models themselves in combination. It sounds like in combination with the familiarity with the film, and the
uniform, the uniform slates and slides. It blew my mind in a really good way.
Yes, yeah. I think if I think back to my younger days in terms of historical gaming, I think, without knowing much about the period, I'd be familiar with the visuals of Second World War or Napoleonic period. That kind of model soldier almost, isn't it? That kind of or Victoriana style things. Obviously, they get blended, especially with some toys. They're not always the most accurate or blended across, sort of thing. But I wondered if that was I'm guessing then you ended up reading wider and further in that period, and sort of it hooked you in more. Have you got? Sorry, carry on.
Sorry, buddy. No, it did. And as I got older, I thought to myself, I really love this period. I'm just going to read, and that's what I did. I'm not a professor or a doctor or anything like that. I've just read.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of books around, and it extended my knowledge around Napoleonics.
Yeah, and that's what most of us do, I suppose. And as wargamers, we become. I wouldn't want to use the word experts, but you become very knowledgeable about a period through wargaming, far more knowledgeable than, say, a layman maybe, and those sort of things. But so going back to the beginning of writing, did you write any rules before you wrote that first supplement after that conversation with Paul, or
no. Bits and bobs, but nothing that would strike you as amazing, or it just a few pamphlets to play down at my local club, which started off as Albion Triumphant, and I moved to Dragon Slayers, but nothing that I would now pin my name to be honest.
So once you got the go ahead for the first book, I'm assuming the conversation was well, write me something and we'll see if we like it, kind of thing, or did you have to pitch the full thing to him?
Well, yeah, the first thing I did was write a synopsis of this is what I believe it should look like, in bullet form with a few padded words. This is how long it will take me to do, and this is the number of pages each section within that synopsis would take. They went for it, so happy days.
Fantastic. And how long did it take you to write?
The first book, because at that time I was working full time, was several months. In fact, probably nearly a year to be. Just to get it out there, and that was 2011. So I was coming into my 25th year of being a cop.
Right.
So majority of my time was spent doing my day job rather than. So I'd do my day job, come home, and do a bit of writing. So it took a lot longer than, say, the 100 Days campaign supplement took.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But I suppose so many people in this industry work that way. There's so many small
all day long. Yeah.
It's very, very, very common. So if this was the first thing you've ever written, then how did you go about kind of planning it and researching what you were going to write and how you were going to put it together?
So I sort of looked at other rule books in terms of how they were set out. Were there any pointers? Actually, what did I want to get across in terms of the sort of tone of the book? And that tone for me was it appealed to some. Picked a Napoleonic film at all, but wants to get into it, and a dyed-in-the-wool expert around Napoleonic gaming, Napoleonics.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give a flavour of the campaign. I wanted to give a detail of the troops, how they fought, some of the battles that took place in terms of not only detail but scenarios, and then sort of statistics around, or my opinion, that blend in with the original Black Powder statistics that Rick and Jervis had come up with, and try and sort of synergize with those rather than going left field and creating all new units and new that sort of break the system.
Yeah, it's a companion, isn't it? To kind of to give more depth and a bit more period speciality. I think that's the way I interpret the supplements for Black Powder.
Yeah, spot on.
So that obviously went very well. How long was it after that before they came running to you and asked you to do more, or did you always sort of plan to do the secondary one, the follow up, the Waterloo one, aside from the Peninsula one?
the first one was 2011. The second one was 2014. And I think because of the success of the first one, that was a sort of yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
But again, it was the same methodology, synopsis. This is what we want to do. This is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And because Albion Triumphant 1 was the first, or my first contact with writing, I sort of got better at it in terms of methodology and speed.
Yeah.
So that made it easier for me because I knew I got a platform, a little form that I could sort of stick things to.
That makes sense.
So that was an easier ride than AT1.
Right. That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And then what about when you did the third, the Clash of Eagles? So what was was that an area that you were familiar with as well, or did you have to go and do lots of extra research for that?
There's lots of extra research, but my favourite army in Napoleonics is the Russian army.
Right.
I bought, painted, and sold so many Russian armies. It's bonkers. So I've got a French army, I've got a Saxon army, I've got a British army, and a Russian army. And the Russian army in the 1812 campaign just fascinates me. So I thought, I went through to see John and Paul and punted what I thought would be a really good extension to what we had at the moment, which was British, French, and Prussians, Brunswickers, and Dutch.
Yep.
Dutch Belgiums, and I thought, well, with this supplement, you're going to bring in a lot more armies, and they went for it, and it took a bit of time, but the transition was in 2014, I think 2015, 2016. I actually retired then, so I had a lot more time to do a lot of research, but also put my fingers to the typewriter. The keyboard, should I say? Now, showing the edge, and get that knocked out, and I really enjoyed that. It was a bigger project than the other two, but I enjoyed it more than AT1 and AT2. To be honest,
right, that's interesting. I mean, I've got it sitting next to me on the desk. I've never used it. I've only sort of gained with British-centric armies. I found Napoleonic era through, like many people, through Sharp. So Peninsula has always got a massive, a really special place in my wargaming heart, so to speak. So, I've had the book for years, and I've read bits of it and thumbed through it, but I've never played against or with a Russian army. So that's definitely something I need to change in the future, especially if Warlord carry through with some of the hints and things that they were dropping at the open days about future armies. Then that will be definitely something I won't be able to avoid. Anything they bring out in that scale, I'm going to spend money on it.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed. I'm not. I don't work for Warlord, but I hope.
Keep nudging them. I'm sure they'll. I'm sure they're well aware that the community wants it, but they've obviously got a lot of game systems and a lot of things to be.
They're very busy, which is good. They've been a tonic to the industry, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they take a lot of. I don't want to get into this too deeply here. They take a lot of flack on the internet, especially from people who seem to just see them as the Games Workshop of the historical market. But
they're not. I wish people could, sit down with John and Paul and look at, see what they want to do. It's yes, they come from a Games Workshop background, but they've got the community foremost in their sights for me.
Yeah,
because if they didn't, I don't think I'd engage with them, to be honest.
No, I think it's to do with size, isn't it? Any company that gets any kind of size they start to attract more people, but because they have to become naturally more commercial, and so on and so on. Same with Battlefront for Flames of War. They seem to take a more flack than any other World War II game does, because the smaller industry people don't seem to take quite as much criticism. And I just find it amusing. I did a review for, I think it was the Epic Commanders, the 3 boxes they did, so the Prussians, the French, and the British. And one of the comments on one of the Facebook groups where someone basically said, I don't trust companies who spend that much time making the boxes look nice. I mean, like, you can't make that stuff up, can you? You can't just like, oh god, they made a nice box, but they must be nefarious, and they want to draw you in with these nice boxes, but inside there's just going to be cardboard. But anyway, we're it doesn't make gamers. We're weird. We like
yes, we are. We're weird, yes.
We're a bit strange. So take back to the rules writing. Then, do you have a sort of philosophy, a design philosophy that you try to sort of stick to with the supplements you've been writing? Oh, and not just with Black Powder. I mean, obviously bringing the rules writing you do for Stand 2 Games and do you work for is it Mercer Miniatures, or was that something?
No, I used to work for Mercer Miniatures. When I retired from the police, probably digressing here, Stuart, but when I retired from the police, a couple of years, and then my wife chased me out of the job. But my friend, a fellow Dragon Slayer, Rob Lane, owns a company called Mercer Miniatures, who produce some of the most fantastic fantasy figures in resin that you could imagine. Yeah, they are stunning. If your listeners or viewers want to go and see Mercer Miniatures, you will. And he said, "Look, I've got a place that I need filling. Do you mind for a couple of months, just giving us a leg up?" And I went there, took some time out, and did learned how to resin cast. My son works for that company, so it was actually my son teaching his dad how to resin cast. So I learned a new skill. What should have been a couple of months turned into a year, so that as well. But I have got another string. But in terms of design philosophy, is for me to keep it simple, stupid. What I don't want to be, I don't want it to turn people off. I want to keep it straight and narrow and to the point, so that people can see what I'm trying to get across. That it's not too loaded in terms of terminology, so that they can navigate it and get figures on the table and play a game. Simple as that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. I thought that your answer would be something like that, but I thought I'd ask anyway, because I know that sometimes there's a kind of an underlying rule that people try and stick to. But that, for your supplements, that seems to make an awful lot of sense. So let's talk about the epic side of things here. I know that's what a lot of the viewers of the channel will be interested in. Let's talk about when you first became aware of the Epic Waterloo release, or did you play or dabble with the American Civil War release as well? Or
to my eternal shame, I bought the American Civil War release. I spent, in fact, if I told my wife how much I did spend on it, I'd probably be in the spare bedroom, to be honest.
No comment.
It's on my pile of shame upstairs in the loft, and I want to get it down, and I want to play it, and I want to build it, but you know what it's like. You see another, like moth to a light, aren't we? Something else came up, and that took a back seat. But I will return to it. But I was absolutely over the moon when I saw the Epic Napoleonics coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as soon as the American Civil War was released, people started talking about whether they would do it, and I think it was probably only a matter of time based on a reaction from the community. So how long after you got hold of your Epic Waterloo models were you thinking about writing a supplement, or had they already contacted you, or were you already banging down the door trying to contact them about it?
Well, well, the story was I bought. I love Napoleonics, and I saw the releases, and I thought to myself, I am getting a French box, a French starter box, and a British starter box, and out of those two boxes, I am going to create the second and third Netherlands division and the Netherlands cavalry division, but the ancillary, what's left, I will create British and French.
Yeah.
And my friends had said to me, you're nutty for Napoleonics. Can we have a go? And I'm like, you can, but in 28mm, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be, I don't think.
Yeah.
Whereas when Epic came out, I thought to myself, right, I'm going to re-engage with my, say, look, this has come out. What I want to do is set a few games up using the Epic miniatures and the black powder rules and see what you think to it. So I sort of they agreed, and I thought, well, I don't want to just play a done. Let's create some scenario.
Yeah.
And reverting back to my go-to period, Waterloo, and actually the actual Epic is sort of set in the Waterloo period. I'll design some scenarios for to play some Waterloo scenarios.
Yeah.
Which we did, and the feedback. Say sort of pause there in terms of the people that I were playing with. Die-hard fantasy gamers, not historical gamers at all. They've never come in from the historical. Absolutely loved it, and they loved it from a sort of visual perspective, and for me, it played, I think, how Black Powder was originally intended. So most people have like 6x4 boards,
yes,
or 8x4 boards, whereas I think when Rick and Jerry's playing it and designing it, you're talking massive boards round at the Perrys and sweeping advances, and you can do that with Epic.
Yes, you can,
and that's what. Sorry, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm saying that's absolutely, that's what attracted me. That was one of those things that those sets of rules, and include Hail Caesar in that, and probably Pike and Shot as well. That they obviously designed for massive tables, but the reality is most people were playing probably a brigade plus on a 6x4 and not quite getting the full experience of the rules. But anyway, back to you. But.
No, totally agree, and then that's what they bought, and then. Well, I've wrote these rules. I've wrote these scenarios for. It just makes sense to say to Warlord Games, I've written these scenarios. What about doing a campaign supplement that includes all these scenarios? And the feedback or the mood music from Warlord Games. Why have we not thought about that? Let's get this done. We need to get it done, and we need to get it done.
Yeah.
So it was like all systems. And in the main, the vast majority of the scenarios. So it was just in skeletal form, but it was about padding them out to make sure that we got a supplement. So again, synopsis. To identify what I wanted to do, so that John and Paul and the team would agree that. I think the synopsis came in at 132 pages, but I got a bit carried away with myself writing 208.
It's a chunky little book.
But it's. But they accepted it, and they accepted. I believe it's that has gone down really well.
It has done really well. As well, from the people I talked to, obviously I've got an echo chamber of people that mostly like it anyway. But you can get a bit of an idea from comments on a video, and the one I did a review of it. It was definitely very, very, very positively received. Very, very. I don't think there's any comments on. Usually, there's especially when it's Warlord games related. Usually, there's someone that will pop up and don't like them, and they clearly don't like anything with their logo on. And it was just positive comment after positive comment. I don't think I've probably count on the fingers of one hand how many times someone said I don't really like it, and then quite often that's just I'll just use the existing the Albion Triumphant books and convert from those kind of people rather than the new book. So it's nothing negative in terms of, well, it's a waste of time sort of thing. And most people really, really appreciate it. So what the little changes in the rules that are in there, so you've got your kind of additional rules section. Was that something that you had designed to use in your epic games with your friends, or was that something that you discussed with Paul and John about adding into the book to make sort of further changes to the slightly adjusted rule book that they brought out with the game?
The adjusted parts of the 100 Days campaign are mainly within or based within special rules.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that too because let's face it, there are lots of scenarios out there in other forms that staple diet around the major actions of the 100 Days campaign, such as Ligny, Quatre Bras, Laison, and I just wanted to make those different, but not only make those different, but build upon the staple diet of the games that people know and the scenarios that people will know, but include other scenarios that people may not have seen or heard, because in the main, the wargaming stream, and I include myself in this at some point. Waterloo was Waterloo. There was nothing before, and there was nothing after.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do was build upon that. So
that makes sense.
That's where I went with it.
That makes sense. I think there was quite a few people that there's that the additional rules section, just little things like the reintroduction of tiny units were kind of removed from the epic version of the rules that was put out with the box set, which are obviously in the main Black Powder rules, and just things like I quite like the half batteries of artillery, and you've got the unit size revisions and things in there, just little bits like that people I think were doing anyway, changing, and I think I just it's those kind of rules that people go, oh yes, brilliant, this is how we're doing it, this is how we're playing it anyway. And it's nice to see that, which felt like it was almost simplified for the epic version, but there's little things like that seem to be reintroduced, which I think went down really well. And people can do that anyway, but people love the legitimacy, don't they, of actually seeing the rule written somewhere, because they can do it there. I'm there. I in other rule systems. And can I do it? Well, it's brought a lot of new players, and you see that in the Facebook group that I set up. There's an awful lot of questions around points and things, and I'll be honest with you, I've not looked at the points in any of the Black Powder books or any of your army lists or anything like that. I don't play points with historical gaming very often. Flames of War maybe, but I'd look at a historical order of battle and try and make a scenario that's kind of got an objective and it's going to be fun. Nothing against playing points, it's just not made my mind works with that, what it does for other game systems. But I found it quite, not jarring, but quite noticeable, the amount of people that were asking questions. Well, how do we... Is this special rule worth it with these points? And then you'll see all the older, more experienced historical gamers going, don't worry about that, or it doesn't matter. But it shows how many new people it's brought into historical gaming, because finally they can do this big battle that looks amazing. They've wanted to do, but they've always kind of thought, well, that looks a bit much to paint. And we can hook them in and teach them the ways of more chilled, laid-back gaming. But anyway, it's more of an observation than anything else. But
no, I think you bang on right. The majority, the supplement is set up not to play to points, but to cater to everybody. Mm-hmm. And particularly, my background is points based wargaming. Mm-hmm. But as I've got older and more relaxed, it isn't. It's scenario based.
Yeah.
But I know there are people that I want to bring into the hobby that want points and need points, and to some extent, sometimes an evening's gaming at a club,
Yeah.
people want a balanced game, and points bring a balanced game. And it reminds me of one of my memories was one of my friends invited a guy round to the Albion District War Games Club, and my friend had got just a generalised Napoleonic French army, and the guy that he played had brought along a British Guards division.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like, oh, so the British Guard division just ran through the French, and I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way than this.
Yes.
And that's where I come from. But I totally get people that don't get points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely don't. It's not I don't like them. It's just that my mind doesn't work that way for this kind of game.
Yeah.
It's quite strange. Whereas, I play other games like you. I come from a background of playing games that are points matched. In fact, the guys that play locally at a place called Incon Gaming in Cheltenham, they're playing this, and they started by doing points because it's a perfect way of we play 1,000 points on a Thursday night at the club, and it that's the way they kind of started playing it. And if I went down to play them, then I would be doing the same, just because that's the best way of playing someone you don't know, isn't it? So I'm not against them, but it was just an observation that kind of struck me how many people are asking about it, and a mission that I actually haven't looked at any of the points or worked out a list in terms of points. Is it so? The final sort of bit around the book. Is there anything you wanted to put in there that you couldn't, that you want to return to, that you couldn't fit in there because of space or time?
The only thing, it was. If I remind myself, it was around artillery, and it was the difference between 4-pounders, 6-pounders, 9-pounders, 12-pounders,
Right.
and I don't think it differentiates that much. And I wanted to split that out, but that didn't make it.
Right.
But it's a minor thing, because at the end of the day, people can. I think and I don't think it is part of the Albion Triumphant and Clash of Eagles supplements, but it didn't make it to Epic.
Right.
So if people wanted to look at larger caliber weapons and what you can do with them in Epic, then refer to the previous supplements. I'd say, yeah.
I've noticed the odd. Again, it's probably those newer players that have come from a points background. Or what's the difference between these? What do they do that's different?
Yeah.
And it's a logical question, but as I said, it depends what sort of angle you come at it from. And for me, it's poring over documentaries and history books, trying to recreate something. We're not really thinking about those kind of things. But no, thanks for answering that. So your own Epic Gaming. So how's you talked about your armies and what you were building. I've seen that you had there was an article, wasn't there, in the Warlord community, with some of your conversions and things for your Dutch and Belgians and things. How's your own army coming along? What you're working on at the moment?
It's coming along. I'm doing. I've done the majority of the second division. Mm-hmm. I'm just painting. So I've done the Dutch. I've done the Belgians. I've done the artillery. I'm just starting the Nassau element of it.
Yeah.
So that will get done very shortly. I'm hoping that. I'm not hoping. Paul said to me that once it's finished as a complete division, bring it in and we'll showcase it, which I'm happy to do. In fact, not I'm happy. I'm over the moon to do.
Fantastic. I'll pop a link to that article in the video description for people who haven't seen it. I'll pop a little link in, but you're probably seeing images from that I've pinched from the internet during this video anyway. So, but and what else are you? What are your plans, or are you going to keep building epic Napoleonic armies? Have you got future projects or?
Yes, I want to do. I'm going to do a British. And I am. I'm hoping by the time I've done the British and the French, the Warlord have said that army.
Yeah.
And if not, and the plans are not going that way, then to another company.
Yeah.
Buy Russian figures and use the stats out of Clash of Eagles, basically.
Yep. Absolutely. And have you got any future supplements you'd like to write for Epic? It might be, if you can't answer questions like that, please just feel free to say no comment. But there's a question from someone coming up which probably relates to this as well. So Simon Clarkson has asked about, he'd love to hear more about a book that was mentioned on the open day, and it might not be that's got anything to do with it, but there's something about a potential 1813 book was being bandied about. So do what you want with that weird question. If you can't talk about things, then let me know. But would you like to write another supplement, and is there one on the way you can mention?
So I would love to write numerous supplements for Epic. I think it's a fantastic scale. I think for the gamer like me who plays on a 6 foot or 8 foot by table, I think you get the Black Powder experience that Rick and Jervis wanted. Have I punted anything? I haven't. I have written, and it is written. Probably about 95% of it's written, and with Warlord, a supplement for 1813.
Brilliant.
So I'm revisiting a few bits and bobs around they're not army lists, the units that fought, because it was massive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to refine what I've done there. That's with Warlord. When it's going to get produced, I don't know. Studio, I'm Adrian McWalter, a retired cop who lives in Sheffield, and I don't, the inner machinations of Warlord Games is not under my sphere of influence at all.
No, it's fair enough. I mean, I remember watching I wasn't there. I couldn't make the open day. I remember watching some of the seminars back, and it was they said that there was a book in development. I don't think they mentioned your name, so I didn't know whether I think people were putting 2 and 2 together, and well, obviously getting it right. And it cut out a little bit a couple of times with the audio, but is that supplement one just sort of scale generic, basically? So that's like your existing Black Powder ones rather than one that's Epic focused.
It's Black Powder focused, but that said, I mean, with a little bit of work, you can turn any of the sub.
Oh, absolutely.
On it said it then make instead of being 28 mil, 15 mil, it can be 12 mil, it can be 6 mil.
Yeah.
Just with a little bit of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 18. Well, it's 1813 focused. I'm hoping it's my supplement, to be honest.
Someone else has written one.
Yeah, they rejected mine and somebody's skin. Hey ho, that's how it works sometimes.
Well, no, it sounds like yours. Well, you never know. You might, if you're doing that one and they are going to release the Epic miniatures they have hinted at, you may get called back to do some more focused Epic sort of supplements and things based around that and from that, and in addition to that, which would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And what about aside from Warlord based things, have you got any sort of rules that you'd like to write, or periods of history that you'd like to sort of write for, whether that's rules or supplements, anything that's sort of not currently planned? Or
well, I mentioned Stand? I have mentioned Standard Games.
You have, yes. We haven't gone into detail there.
It's a small little company with myself and my daughter, and we actually had a meeting today. All the Kickstarter campaign last year around a set of fantasy rules that I've written, and we're going to re-energise that because people have started playing it again round about where I live.
Right.
Why aren't you producing these? Because they're really, really good. It's a spin-off from my historical rules and the with the Stand 2 games genre.
Right.
They potter along, but they really work. They're fast. They play as fast as Black Powder,
Hmm.
but these ones are fantasy based.
Okay. Is it sort of rank and flank style, or?
Yeah, it's a rank and flank style. I should say that in terms of the rules that Stand 2 Games do, we do a set called Over the Hills.
Hmm.
We do a American Civil War set called Over Malvern. We
Okay.
do American War of the Independence called Rise and Fight Again. Its pseudo is Over Bunker Hill. We've got a skirmish game called Forager that's gone down really, really well. And what I want to produce is a set of fantasy rank and flank rules that take people back to what Warhammer was, but it isn't Warhammer.
Yeah.
Because Warhammer, obviously, the World War was as gone.
Yes. Until they're bringing it back at some point next year or the year after. That could be expensive.
I want to get in first.
yeah, get your rules out first. God, no, I'm trying to ignore that. I'm trying to ignore that's happening. That old world thing, because I promised myself I would never paint massed rank 28mm plus again. That's what. Yeah. So it could be painful, but I think Rob Alderman's just taken over management of it now, who manages Blood Bowl and Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game, and he's a good chap. So I think he will do a very good job of it. So it's even more reason for me to not ignore it when it comes out. But anyhow, right then. Do you mind if we go through some questions from some of the viewers? Some of them are people from the Epic, the Waterloo group, and there's a couple from Instagram and things as well. So I've copied them all down. Some of them might not be relevant because a few people are probably not 100% aware that you don't work full time for. They are now if they've been listening to this, obviously, but that you don't work full time for Warlord Games. Some of the questions are just not really something that's in your wheelhouse to deal with. But so the first one is from John Silverfox, and is it possible that they will? Yeah, this is one of those that you won't answer. So maybe change it. Is it possible they'll do a Franco-Prussian War supplement? Would love that. So let's turn that. Would you like to write a Franco-Prussian War supplement?
I know literally nothing about the Franco-Prussian War. I think they should, to be honest, because I think it'd be really, really good. I say literally nothing. I do know a little bit, but it's one of those where I think as a company, it's okay writing rule books, but people have got to buy the book and the company's got to make the figures, and it's whether the market's out there for a niche genre such as Franco-Prussian. It's like the Crimea, isn't it, really? Yeah,
I mean, the Crimea always is something that always makes me want to explore that, but that's probably as a Brit. Whereas I imagine that if you're French or German, that you might be more interested in the Franco-Prussian War. But again, they are quite small. I suppose Charge of the Light Brigade, as a Brit, stands out as something that's quite big, but that's just one thing. So there's one film there. I often look to film and books. So how many novels are there? How many films are there? And that kind of gives you an idea of the marketability of some of these things, at least mass marketability. But it would be cool. Agree. But the answer is we don't know, and you're not going to be writing it by the sounds of things. No. So Alan Roberts has written, my question is, what are the differences, if any, when writing supplements or campaign guides for games in epic scale rather than the traditional 28mm? We probably covered some of that, but do you kind of consciously think about the differences, or is it just a case of rescaling?
Yes, there is evidence in terms of if people look at the scenarios in AT1 and AT2, in AT2, Albion Triumphant 2, compared with the scenarios in the Epic book. The Epic book has widened the actual battlefield, because you can.
Yeah.
What that also does is allows you to, because you've got a wider battlefield, to bring in further rules. I'm talking light touch, nothing heavy, because you've got more troops in a wider area of operation.
Right.
So for me, there's a massive difference between 28mm and 12mm in terms of how you approach the actual deployment of a scenario.
Right, and that's interesting. That's interesting. Fantastic. Right, so next one is from Lilo. And he's, again, another question that's not really fully in your wheelhouse, but is there any chance of an American Civil War set of scenario or campaign books for the East and West Coast theatres? So, again, it's probably, would you like to write a similar kind of 100 Days thing, but American Civil War based for the epic release, I suppose?
Well, I know a lot. Yeah, I know a lot more about the American Civil War than. And again, I would love to. However, the power is not in my hands. Definitely a Warlord Games, and I'm sure. I mean, there are the people. There's a person that has written a supplement for American Civil War, and I think if they were going to do an epic campaign supplement, they'd probably go to that guy.
Knocking on his door. I can't remember his name. No, the Glory Hallelujah is a lovely supplement, and I think most of the epic American Civil War
Glory Hallelujah,
is a good one. And again, much like you said before the 100 Days campaign, your existing supplements, they don't take an awful lot of playing around really to make them work for epic anyway. You can adjust a few things here and there, and away you go. And that's the same for the American Civil War set. Right then, so the next one is we got Scott Collins. So he's asking about updated books, really, whether there's any plans to update the books that you've written, so the supplements you've written. I think was the first one written during Black Powder 1? I can't remember now.
Yes, yeah.
So I think it's kind of getting a timeline and tidying up the odd inconsistency with the Black Powder 2 rules and things like that.
Again, that'd be design studio. That'd be under.
Yeah.
And I mean, Paul may come to me, but there are people within that design studio who understand Clash of Eagles and also BP2, so they might just do it internally.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I didn't think it was one that you'd be able to definitely answer, but I want to make sure that the people who are asking the questions at least know that I'm passing them on to you at the very least. So we've covered Simon Clarkson, as I mentioned earlier, asked about the 1813 books. We've covered that already, and that was a good answer to that one. Fantastic. Look forward to that. Brenton Kopic. Now I love this question. This is if Peter Jackson was going to make a new Waterloo movie, what info would you pass on to him? So hints and tips from you about what to do.
That's a fantastic question.
Fun one, isn't it? I'd love Peter Jackson to make a Waterloo movie as well. That would be amazing.
It'd be super. I mean, don't get me wrong. The 1970s Waterloo movie for me is, I watch it once a month. I think I'm just stoked on it. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I would, for me, battles are made up of microcosms of events.
Yeah.
And I think that the Waterloo, the 1970s Waterloo film was one of those overarching epics. What I would do is I'd focus on the minutiae, the little bits that make up the whole, so the microcosms.
Yeah.
Such as little examples of. Let me think of one. Go on. There was a sergeant defending the grounds of Hougoumont. It was in the and as the French come forward, they got pushed out of the kitchen gardens.
Yeah.
And the sergeant's name is Ralph Fraser, 3rd Guards. And he was making his way back into the safety of Hougoumont, and met the actual commander of the 1st Laguerre, a guy called Colonel Cubières, and Cubières had a swing at him with his mount, had a swing at him with his sabre, and Fraser were having none of that. Peninsula veteran, wounded twice, knew his stuff, dragged the Frenchman off his horse, mounted his horse, and rode off into to escape. Both men surviving.
That's a nice little story, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's those. That's where I concentrate with a blend of the overhaul, but that sort of stuff.
I can
Would be my
imagine there's
advice.
so many things that people would expect to see, that it'll just be a list of things he's in trouble for not including or not getting quite right.
Yeah,
Because there's like you said, there's so many small stories within that, and things you'd have to big parts you'd have to cover, and you get something wrong. I think if I had a tip for him, it will be, don't change things historically where you really don't have to, because you're going to get hammered for it. So to get hammered as little as possible for it.
all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, the benchmark is the 1970s Waterloo film, which is a classic. So, Peter Jackson might turn around and say, I'm not.
Yeah. Right, then next one is Mike Bursix, and he said probably can't answer this, but maybe you can, or we've already covered it. Have Warlord commissioned any new books from him? Well, we've got an answer to that with an Austrian or Russian content. So so we've kind of covered. We've kind of covered that, and then we're getting to the end now. So Reese Emmanuel. So I've missed the first one from him, I think. So was there a mechanic or rule that you personally wanted to include but decided you needed to leave out for sort of length, marketing, or sort of feedback reasons?
That's a really good question, and one of the things I've reflected on my journey of bits and bobs of rules is that when I started off in 2011, it was Priestley and write all these rules, and I don't think you need to. What I've settled on is, what I need to do is just show the gamer how to play a scenario. If you want to play points, these are the points, but stick to what has been. And the Black Power, why break a great set of rules with minutiae? So nowadays it is just light touch.
Yeah.
The only thing, and I think we've touched on it, is I would separate out the caliber of and in our games, boys, that's very, very minor. The scenarios, each scenario has got some special rules, just them different from the norm. But again, it's all light touch. Whereas I entered it with a sort of a big hammer, I think, and over time I've sort of lightened the blow.
Yes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's another one from him here that I lost, and we're back, because it's in a different order. How difficult is it for balance sticking to the black powder design methodology for abstracted playability, basically fun simulation and not detailed replication, with wanting to add all that the Napoleonic bespokeness that we all want without the rules complexity? So that's quite a big question. That was from Reese as well, quite a big question. I was just searching for it because I lost it.
That has been my journey, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the rules in AT1-2 and Clash are to really dig into Napoleonic tactics, but balance with I don't. So let me rephrase this. The rules in AT2 and Clash of Eagles do not, in my opinion, transfer to large games of Epic.
Right.
Because they are large games, and what you want is fast sweeping games rather than minutiae.
Right. So yeah.
So the vast majority of our games just have, for the British, we'll have first fire, which is steady line, and we'll have pas de charge, which makes them reliable plus in column, and that's it.
Right. I see.
But for the younger men and women out, really flavour the games. The rules are there and do synergise with Black Panther.
Yeah,
but they are for smaller games.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense, definitely. Right then, we've got one final question. This is from Dalibor Zaman. And I have no idea what he's getting at here, because as I've said earlier, I've never read the Russian rules or played against them. But he said, why Russians' artillery has to be deployed on a hill? What's the main reason behind this design decision? It very much limits Russian play style. So again, I don't know what that rule is. So
I've had many conversations with Mr. Zaman, to be honest.
Oh, you've already answered this, have you?
Yeah. And it's one of those where doctrine versus playability.
Right.
And when you're creating a thing, you want to, British artillery, French artillery, Russian artillery, Austrian artillery, you can always, but you want to create something that makes them a little bit different.
Yeah.
So there was a time when Russian artillery and commanders would want their artillery placed on a high ground.
Yeah.
So that was just a nod and a wink to that. But that, you don't have that part of that rule in that book, you don't have to use.
Yeah.
It's a suggestion. It's not a you must.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, it's a case of what was some. It's I don't know him. I don't know what his thought process behind the question was, or I didn't know the rule. So, but I understand
the rule.
I know he obviously doesn't like the rule. So the answer is just don't play it if you don't want to.
Yeah, just cross that out of your book.
Absolutely, that would be my ethos with it anyway.
Yeah,
but
and Stuart, that has been that is they're not rules, the suggestions. If you don't like the suggestion, don't use it.
Yeah,
create your own. And then if some of my suggestions spark some flavour in people's mind for them to go, do you know what, I don't like that, but then for me, I've done a job as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's all the questions there, and all the questions from me. You've given up well over an hour of your time already. Before I let you go, is there anything else? Anything you want to kind of shout out? Anything you're currently working on? Anything you wanted to sort of add at the end?
No, not really. I've enjoyed the experience. I'm glad that people are enjoying playing the 100 days and the scenarios. Thank you for reaching out and allowing me to. Brilliant.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's been fantastic chatting to you, and we'll let you go now back to your evening, and we'll see what comes out in the future with the future releases and things you're doing, and hopefully we can get you back on and answer some more questions. So, thanks very much.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking to Adrian, and thank you again, Adrian, for coming on the channel and chatting. The plan is to do many more of these, but they will be ad hoc. It will be as and when someone's available or the right topic comes up. Some may be live streams in the future. It didn't work for us to do it as a live stream this time around. Some of them I might get to meet people in person rather than over the internet, so we don't have the issues with technology and cameras and things not working. But all in all, the most important part is the conversation, and like I said, I hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly did. Anyway, if you are new to the channel, please go and check out the other videos. There's plenty of topics on there, lots of epic battles, both Waterloo and American Civil War. There's some World War II stuff with Flames of War as well, and some Middle Earth. Lots of painting tutorials, as well as project vlogs and general chatter. So go and check it out, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. If you have enjoyed the video, please give us a like. It definitely helps us very much. Anyway, take care. Catch you soon.